As a former New Hampshire state representative who marched with Dr. Martin Luther King in 1963, he currently serves on the New Hampshire Commission for Human Rights. He's a product of Birmingham, Alabama, where at one time he had to guess how many jelly beans were in a fruit jar just to be able to vote.
We've come a long way, but we're not there yet.
Together we will explore the visible laws, invisible laws, and the structures above and beneath our human surface that keep us reaching for the stars. It is his goal to work with you in putting Nashua back on top, to be voted the #1 city in the nation again.
We are in a crisis situation, and that's what we're going to talk about.
I'm Harvey Keye. Welcome to Nashua Strong.
Hello, beautiful Nashua, New Hampshire, the #1 city in the country that is safe and best run. I am so excited to be with you today, and especially at this time of the year when things look a little cloudy outside. And I want to digress a little bit and just and say I want to thank the guys behind the cameras that do all the work that make this movie that you're going to see me and the mayor on, that make it work and make it beautiful. I also want to thank the almost 100,000 residents in New Hampshire, Nashua, New Hampshire, for watching our channel and getting this news that we are trying to bring to you. I said, when they introduced me, they talk about my coming from Alabama. And I want to tell you that when I was about 13 years old, we lived on a railroad track, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt died when he was about 40, not when he was 45, but in about 1945. I was about 13 years old, and it was so segregated. We were standing on the banks of the railroad when the train that was carrying his casket around the country. We had separate lines, one line for Negroes and colored folks, and one line for white folks. And I remember my mother said, "Salute Franklin Delano Roosevelt." And later on, that didn't bother me because I didn't know that was the drill of the day. Later on, I understood that Franklin Roosevelt says, "Fear is the only thing that you have to fear." And his wife says to Marian Anderson and a huge number of other people of color, "No one can make you feel inferior unless you allow them." And those are some quotes that sort of stuck with me over the period of time. I wiggled my way up to New Hampshire, and with the, I bring my cap because when I got out of the Army in 1956, I wore my uniform with my discharge and everything I needed to go and register to vote. And when I got there to vote, and I think as I already mentioned, the guy said, "Boy, what do you want here?" And I didn't like that, but I said, "I want to vote." He said, "If you can count the number of beads in this jar, you can vote." And I said something nasty to him. And he said, "I will shoot you and nothing will be done about it." I will remember that as he said it today. I'm only saying to us in Nashua, New Hampshire, we're at that point still today. Voting is critical. Get out and vote whatever your choice is, but do what is the best tool in your toolbox as a citizen in Nashua, New Hampshire. Please get out to vote. Now, when I got to Nashua, it felt like I had an overcoat on with icicles dripping off this overcoat, heavy with water and ice. And I got to Nashua, it looked like that overcoat was relieved or taken off my back. I felt like a weight was off my shoulders. And Jim Donchess wasn't here. That was in the 1970s. But the atmosphere in Nashua gave me hope and courage to keep going upward and better. And that's what I've been doing since I've been here. Just recently, there was a course offered at Rivier College, and I decided to enroll in that course because it says Nashua. No, I didn't know what they said, but it had to do with Nashua, and I wanted to go there. And lo and behold, I stayed there for 5 weeks, and the fellow who came out and talked about Nashua was Jim Donchess. And Jim Donchess brought with him a blueprint. And I want to show you, if you take the camera and put it on this, I don't know, I think he's done this before, but this is his blueprint of about 25 departments that he runs, or they run together, and they run it smoothly. And you know, we talk about leadership skills, and I don't know what to call Jim Donchess except a compassionate leadership, a compassionate leader. I don't know how that definition is either, but I think compassionate has to do with caring about the people that you agreed to serve, and I think that's what Jim Donchess does. Take a shot of this and let the people around the world know this is what Jim Donchess do. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but he's doing that. And I got a chance to see his picture, and it says, I didn't know this because I was indisposed at the time he was doing this, but take a picture of this and let the country know that here in Nashua, New Hampshire, we have a person who is going up the ladder. I have some questions for my guests, and I have crafted them so that you will know something about the character of this man, the soul of this man, the consciousness of this man. The guy who, you know, the Nashua people see, I know you see him walking down the street. I've never seen a mayor walk down the street and say good morning, hello, how do you do, or sing a song, or have coffee. That is a turn on for me. So I said to George Russell, I said, George, what do you think? He says, Harvey, shoot from the hip. I said, George, I don't shoot from the hip. He said, shoot from the lip. I said, no, I can't do that. So I'm going to ask the mayor a couple of questions, more than one, and we're going to have a conversation in the living room. Mayor, I've asked you this before. Where were you born?
Well, first, Harry, thank you for having me. It's good to see you again. We've known each other for many years, and it's great that you've been a citizen of Nashua this whole time and been in the legislature and active in the NAACP and other activities, so it's great to be with you. But I was born in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey. And then, but my father at that time was an FBI agent, actually. And but shortly thereafter, I understand from my parents, we moved to Pittsburgh, near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we lived until I was, 3 or 4, and then moved to Illinois.
Did you live in Youngstown, Ohio?
No.
Never?
No. But my father and brother were from Youngstown.
Okay.
And when they were kids, they were very poor, and there's quite a bit of history there. But so I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, Illinois, a town called Arlington Heights, and then came east for college.
Yeah. Did you play ball in college?
I played football in college, yes.
Were you lettered?
No.
Basketball, lettered?
No, this is football. So I got through into my third year. I got hurt. I had a couple of injuries, so I stopped playing. Maybe I should have kept going. I don't know, but I didn't.
But you never were let it. You weren't ever drafted?
No.
What is a nickname you had when you were a kid?
In high school, now I did letter in 3 different sports in high school. They called me Donch, D-O-N-C-H.
Folks, he's still Donch.
So
He'd answer to you. What is the nicest thing you've ever done for anyone?
I think, well, nicest, I don't really know. But the things that I value the most is I think I was active in raising my daughter, who, grew up here and, went to school here and then, had her own life. And so I'd say that's sort of maybe the most important thing that I've done.
So you got your daughter in school and up and married, and now you're a grandfather.
Correct. So she and her husband, they live in California. They have 2 children, 2 boys. One is 7 and the other is 4, but close to being 5.
And folks, this is a guy who runs 25 departments in the city of Nashua with a team, and it's called love. And I think we might not trivialize that word love, but I think the way compassion is wrapped up in love and sensitivity and belief and all that kind of stuff that he, I believe, gets this city to where it is now. Who inspired you, Jim? Who was the most inspiration for you in your life?
Well, certainly, early on, in terms of people I've known personally, I had my uncle who grew up in Youngstown, as you raised that. He was older than my father by a dozen years or so, and their father died in a quarry accident when they were young, and so they were very poor. So my uncle went to work in a steel mill in Youngstown at age 10, they say. And
at age 10?
At age 10.
Wow.
And he, though, was good in football, and pretty smart, I presume. So he eventually was recruited to go to a private school in Pennsylvania called, I believe, Wyoming Academy. And he went there, ultimately got a football scholarship to Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, and was an All-American there and played in a couple of Rose Bowls, and then went on to medical school, became a doctor, and was, worked. He was an orthopedic surgeon, so he lived in Gary, Indiana, and actually worked at the, in addition to other things, but took care of people at the Gary Steelworks, the U.S. steel plant in Gary. So he was an inspiration to me, certainly, when I was young.
Mm. What kind of, what was your most prized possession as a kid?
Maybe my baseball cards?
Baseball cards?
Probably.
Which is the most famous one you had?
I had a lot.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I had a pretty good collection. We had the Mickey Mantle. We had the Yankee
Did you have
team
Willie Mays?
card. I think I probably did. I had practically everybody. And
yeah.
But then years later, I said to my mother, "Well, what happened to my baseball card collection?" "Oh, well, I threw that away." So I think today it would have some value, but got thrown away over the years.
Have you ever thought of making big trouble for some of your beliefs? For some of the things that you seriously believed as growing up in these different towns? Have you ever thought about, as John Lewis would say, get into some good trouble?
Well, I've probably over the years taken stands on issues that might have been controversial, but I've never done anything like. I know you. You were in the civil rights marches in the South.
I marched
right?
with Martin Luther King.
With Martin Luther King and with John Lewis, I presume.
John Lewis, yeah.
So I've never done anything the equivalent of that, no.
Well, I wasn't looking for trouble, Mr. Mayor. I just thought it was the right thing to do at the time.
Right.
And I happened to be there, and in Birmingham when the MLK was jailed and wrote that letter and all that kind of stuff. But you know, you can't know that. You can't predict that. You just happen to be. I happened to be there. I didn't go there for that. I went there for another reason. But while I was there, I marched. What do you love doing right now? When you go home, finished slaving at the mayor's office and getting things done and answering questions that you've answered before, what do you love doing when you get home?
Well, I read quite a bit.
What do you read, Jim?
Just different things that are unusual.
Like
right,
what?
Like right now?
Yeah.
All right, so I read the writings, the letters and speeches of Teddy Roosevelt, and he kept talking about how he loved and had a copy of and reread numerous times the History of England by Lord Macaulay, written in around 1850. And so I got a copy of that at the State Library, 4 volumes, and I'm reading that now.
Good, good.
But also, some contemporary novels. The one that I read in the last year or two that was really quite good, I thought, was The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. Yeah, yeah. Which is a novel by a young African-American author or woman. Yeah. I don't know how young she is really, but it's really a fantastic kind of family novel. It's a novel, but it's kind of a family story, and that made quite an impression on me.
What is your philosophy of life?
To try to contribute to the community, to make the world better, is to do everything I can to do that, and I think that's why I, over the years, have been active in Nashua in many ways, both in the government, on the Board of Aldermen, as mayor.
What is the hardest thing you've ever done in your life?
I've never really had that many difficulties. I'm fortunate. I haven't really, encountered too much that was very difficult. So I'm not sure that I've really, I can't really.
There's some difficulty in the city of Nashua when you're trying to get some things done. Sure.
But these aren't major life difficulties. I suppose one of the things that I would think about, it's not to me personally, but my daughter was hit by a car and as a pedestrian, and this was 3.5 years ago maybe. And, that's been difficult because the injuries were severe. Now she's recovered, but, has lingering problems, has had a couple of back surgeries. So, that, although it doesn't involve me personally, that certainly has been very difficult.
Yeah. What is the most important lesson you've learned since your 5 terms as mayor? 4 terms, right?
Well, I'm on my 5th, believe it or not. So I served 2 terms when I was younger, as you recall.
Yeah.
And this is my 3rd consecutive term right now.
So let's call it almost 5.
Yeah.
What did you learn from being the mayor of this 90,000 people?
Well, I think that as a public official, as a leader of the city, you need to listen carefully to what your constituents are saying and try to implement their will, consistent with what you also believe is the best thing to do for the community. And I think if you use your own judgment and conscience as well as listen to your constituents, I think in the end you move generally in the right direction.
Have you ever been scared of anything?
I don't know. In what regard?
I don't know. Have you ever, growing up, have you ever been afraid?
Well, probably, but nothing very serious.
How many countries have you visited, Jim?
10 or 12, probably.
Where did you go for your honeymoon?
We really went to so we were married in Keene, where my wife grew up, and we waited a couple months, and we went to California. And I think my brother lived out there then. We went to San Francisco and stayed for a week or so.
Folks, you're listening to the soul and character of the #1 city in the state, in the United States of America. Of 3,300 cities, around 100,000 residents, we are #1, and this guy who's sitting right here, Jim Donchess, has visionary leadership, I call, compassion leadership, and of course he has done an audit of his departments to come up with a blueprint and accomplish what I just showed you on a map. And I don't think many of us knew that he honeymooned in California. I don't think many of us knew that he walks down the streets of Nashua, New Hampshire, and sings a song like Louis Armstrong, "Oh, What a Wonderful World." And I know.
Well, I may be thinking that, but I'm not singing it.
Well, he said he's thinking that, but I think you can see through him because that's what he thinks. And you can see through the mayor how wonderful he embraces. Well, let me say it this way. I think he has not volunteered, but he got hired to serve the residents of Nashua, New Hampshire. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not black and white, not religious, sex, anything having to do with race, creed, color, and all that kind of thing. And if you go to one of his sessions, please see him open his arms when he speaks. And I don't know if he does it unconsciously or not, but to me it says, I am embracing the people of Nashua and sending them a message of having 2 pockets full of happiness every time I step out of that office. Now, we got him on a honeymoon. The best thing he's ever done for anyone. What was that, Jim?
I think that the thing that I feel most strongly about was raising my daughter and helping her launch a successful life.
And the hardest thing you've ever done?
I don't know that I've done anything that hard.
You see, he carries a pocket full of happiness everywhere he goes. And we coined that phrase because this man has never been, I've never seen him, I've known him a long time, upset, screaming, angry, and this is his circulatory system, Nashua, New Hampshire. This is his heartbeat. Is there anything, Jim, that you wish you could still do?
Well, there's certainly things for the city that I'd like to accomplish that are difficult. For example, get rail service to the city. That would be good. Yeah. But we're working on some things now, like we are about to launch a riverfront project, which I think will be very important for the downtown, for the community. Creating a bigger Renaissance park, suspended walkways, river walks.
Now, you see, what he just said, suspended walkways.
Yes.
Down by the river walk. That's by Peddler's Daughter.
So like that, but on some of the other corners of the Main Street Bridge.
Let me ask you, Jim. You probably, I won't ask you to remember, some years ago in a session we had, I suggested, or someone suggested, suspended ice skating rink. An iceless ice skating rink down by the river. And then there was an overhead walk between the buildings downtown and stores and housing for college kids could be above ground. Do you recall anything like that?
Yes, a little bit, yes. So we're trying to do everything we can to strengthen the downtown economy, and certainly an ice rink or the type of rink you're talking about would help, but we haven't been able to put that together yet.
Yeah. But folks, we just might get it there because this is one of the things he had not been able to do. An ice skating rink downtown on Nashua River, maybe suspended, who knows, but it's only money, and we can get some federal money to do that, to improve. And I understand there's a lot of money on the ground, except that to get a rail from Boston to Manchester, and Jim is working on that. But, you know, he can't go to the executive council. He can't beat them up. He can't penetrate them. They have a mind of their own.
You know, we are, in terms of the downtown parks, we did get some federal money, $3 million, thank you to, particularly to Congresswoman Custer and Senator Shaheen. We received $3 million supplemented by a little city money to rebuild the park, the library park between the public library and the Court Street building. So that should start this spring. And that will just create a really beautiful space downtown that we don't have now. So thank you to them and for their help in securing federal dollars.
Jim, what advice would you give the current mayor, who's you? And Emily said, Harvey, that's the mayor, I know that. What advice would you give yourself today for tomorrow?
I think listen to your constituents, try to work hard on their behalf, try to move the community in a positive direction by strengthening its economy, by making it a city that welcomes everyone, by just keeping everyone in mind and trying to include everyone in the forward progress.
That's great. Now, this is a tough one. What 3 words that would describe your personality?
I don't know if I can do that. I'll leave that to you.
Okay, you leave that to us.
Yes.
We call them something. We call them, I have a word for it. It's one word. It's called a legend. Now, a legend is someone who does something that is remembered forever. It never dies. We've never been #1 city in the United States of America among 3,300 other cities that are 100,000 and more, or less than 100,000 residents. We've never been #1. We are now #1, the safest and the most best-run city in the country. And anyone who can take the visionary leadership, and I call it compassion leadership, and I know those are some words that you might have to look up and find out exactly what it means, but it means, and it doesn't mean trivializing love. It means loving what you do and inviting across the board people of all differences. And hopefully we will continue to embrace the differences, like the one I want to strike at is so hypocritical. On Sunday morning is the greatest segregation in the country, in churches. And to me, that's not a embraceable you. That's a separation. And I can't continue to not speak on that. I know it's, well, if it's made by man, it could be unmade by man. But black and white churches is absolutely wrong, in my opinion, in this country, whatever the reason is. And I have a few quotes from legends that I have admired and sort of used as guardrails in my life from Birmingham, Alabama to Nashua, New Hampshire. John Fitzgerald Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country?" Let us in Nashua think about City Hall and civics, education, not ask what this city and Jim Donchess can do for you, but what can you do, what can we do to help him make it a better city to live in? Barack Obama said to his team, "Oh, yes, we can." I think Jim Donchess is saying, "Oh, yes, we can. Let's do it together." Thurgood Marshall said in Birmingham, Alabama, "Separate is not equal to the Supreme Court." Jim Donchess is saying, separate on Sunday morning and not equal in this city. Martin Luther King says, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character." Jim is not blind, and he sees colors, but he embraces, in my opinion, the entire universe of 90+ thousand people in Nashua, New Hampshire. And for that, I'm going to rank him in the atmosphere, height of zenith with Thurgood Marshall.
Well, Harvey, come on.
He's our legend. Now, I know he's not going to accept it, but I'm going to call him, I think he's done something that no one has ever done in the history of this state, in the history of this country, in this city. I've been around for 91 years. I've never heard of a city that's the safest and the best run city in the country, ever. Thank you so much, Jim Donchess, my leader, my mayor, and the legend.
Thank you for having me, Harvey.
Thank you so much, folks.
And good to see you as always.
And Nashua, remember, we get this once. Guys like this comes around about every 50 years. Tom Brady, every 50 years. Muhammad Ali, about every 50 years. Jim Brown, about every 50 years. And so on. And here's Jim Donchess, our lovely mayor. Thank you so much, Mayor. And folks, we'll see you next time. And thank you for allowing us in your living room. And do watch Nashua Channel 6. And don't forget to vote. Thank you so much.